What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Friday, September 24th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, we have a 13-game slate tonight. So let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Garrett Cole with a 13% pitching advantage over the Boston Red Sox. Garrett Cole is only giving up a .577 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 6 righties here tonight. On top of that, the Red Sox have only hit 35 of his last 147 pitches. That's a .238 batting average and a huge sample size. Garrett Cole is 11,000 FanDuel salary, 200 less on DraftKings, projected at 42.7 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 3.03. Record is 15-8 on the season, pitching an average of 99 pitches per game, averaging 42 fantasy points per game. He scored 17, 39, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Garrett Cole here versus the Boston Red Sox. I also like Jose Berrios with a 6% batting advantage over a low salary batting team, the Minnesota Twins. Jose Berrios, he's pitching his best ball versus righty batters, only giving up a .619 OPS versus righties. He's facing 5 righties here tonight, and on top of that, the Twins have only hit 4 of his last 22 pitches. That's a 182 batting average, but a pretty small sample size. And Jose Berrios is 9,700 FanDuel salary, 200 less on DraftKings, projected at 30.4 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 34 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 39, 34, and 48 fantasy points in his last 3 games. He has an ERA of 3.45. His record is 12-8 on the season, pitching an average of 95 pitches per game. He pitched the full 7 innings in his last 3 games. So I like Jose Berrios here versus the Minnesota Twins. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Will Smith with a 16% batting advantage over the low salary pitcher Humberto Castellanos. Will Smith is batting 20% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .982 OPS versus righties, and Humberto Castellanos, he's giving up a .797 OPS versus righties. Will Smith is 1-for-1 with a 3 OPS versus Castellanos. He's 3,500 FanDuel salary, 1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 6, and 4 fantasy points in the last 3 games. But I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 10 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Will Smith here versus Humberto Castellanos.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now, one of my favorite plays on the slate, here's a value play for you. I like Ji-Man Choi with a 76% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Edward Cabrera. Ji-Man Choi is batting 39% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .814 OPS versus righties. And Edward Cabrera, he pitches his worst ball versus switch hitters, 37% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .395 OPS versus switch hitters. Now, there's no at-bats versus Cabrera yet, and Ji-Man Choi is only $2,500 FanDuel salary and only $800 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, projected at 13.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9, 9, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Ji-Man Choi here versus Edward Cabrera. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Jean Segura with a 17% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Sam Howard. Jean Segura is batting 13% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .864 OPS versus lefties, and Sam Howard is giving up a .685 OPS versus righties. Now, Jean Segura is 0 for 1 versus Howard, and he's $3,300 FanDuel salary, $1,500 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 13, 10, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Jean Segura here versus Sam Howard. I also like Colton Wong with a 40% batting advantage over Tyler Megill. Colton Wong is batting a .722 OPS versus righties, and Tyler Megill, he pitches his worst ball by far to lefty batters, 42% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .014 OPS versus lefties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Megill yet, and Colton Wong is $3,400 FanDuel salary, only $400 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 0, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Colton Wong here versus Tyler Megill. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa with a 53% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Alexander Wells. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is batting 11% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .748 OPS versus lefties. And Alexander Wells, he pitches his worst ball by far to righty batters, 41% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .210 OPS versus righties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Wells yet, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is $3,000 FanDuel salary, $500 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.7 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 16, and 6 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa here versus Alexander Wells.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. I like Javier Baez with a 31% batting advantage over Eric Lauer. Javier Baez is batting 14% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .794 OPS versus lefties. And Eric Lauer, he pitches 17% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .872 OPS versus righties. Javier Baez is 3 for 5, batting .600 with a 1.867 OPS versus Lauer. He's $3,500 FanDuel salary, $800 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 15, 6, and 6 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Javier Baez here versus Eric Lauer. I also like Nicky Lopez with a 41% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Casey Mize. Nicky Lopez is batting 12% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .669 OPS versus righties. And Casey Mize, he's pitching 29% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .834 OPS versus lefties. Now, I like this pick because Nicky Lopez is 5 for 10, batting .500 with a 1.145 OPS versus Mize. He's only $2,900 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 12, and 7 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Nicky Lopez here versus Casey Mize. And another value play for you, I like Freddie Galvis with a 49% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Sam Howard. Freddie Galvis is batting 5% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .746 OPS versus lefties. And Sam Howard, he pitches his worst ball by far to switch hitters, 44% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.204 OPS versus switch hitters. Freddie Galvis is 1 for 2 with a 2.5 OPS versus Howard because that one hit was for a home run. And he's only $2,300 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 8.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 3, and 6 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So this is my favorite value play on the slate. So I like Freddie Galvis here versus Sam Howard. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Austin Meadows with an 82% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Edward Cabrera. Austin Meadows is batting 44% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .821 OPS versus righties. And Edward Cabrera, he's pitching 37% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a 1.073 OPS versus lefties. Now, there's no at-bats versus Cabrera yet, and Austin Meadows is $3,100 FanDuel salary, $1,100 more on DraftKings, projected at 11 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 26, 6, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Austin Meadows here versus Edward Cabrera. I also like Robbie Grossman with a 31% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Carlos Hernandez. Robbie Grossman is batting 20% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .805 OPS versus righties. And Carlos Hernandez, he pitches his worst ball versus switch hitters. 11% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .878 OPS versus switch hitters. Now, Robbie Grossman is 0 for 2 versus Hernandez, but the splits are good here, and he's $3,000 FanDuel salary, $1,400 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 12, 12, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Robbie Grossman here versus Carlos Hernandez. Now I also like Akil Baddoo with a 39% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Carlos Hernandez. Akil Baddoo is batting 36% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .843 OPS versus righties, and Carlos Hernandez, he's giving up a .794 OPS versus lefties, and Akil Baddoo is 0 for 2 versus Hernandez, and he's $2,900 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 13, 6, and 19 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Akil Baddoo here versus Carlos Hernandez.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.